Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. We have an update to last night's crazy story. No, not Taylor Swift making her presidential endorsement, but the story of Bachelorette star Jenn's ex, Devin, releasing a ton of text messages. Kids these days call them receipts. I'll be sharing his apology. He, I guess, uploaded text messages that then he realized involved very personal, they call them sexts, the SSEXT, right? The personal, intimate text messages that may have been irrelevant to some of the points he was making. I'm going to give my thoughts, but I'm also slowing this down. He had a 13-minute video with, dozens of text messages, 30, 40, and I don't have a take on them. I haven't read them. I actually blurred them out on my last video because what happened was it was like 4 or so p.m. my time here in Central Standard Time, and I wanted to share what he had to say and offer my thoughts. And as more has come out from people pausing and reading the text messages, it looked like he missed or did not redact information that's just not becoming for the, or just not needed for the public. So it's one of those things like if a nude photo is shared without someone's consent, you shouldn't be watching that. But at the same time, it's interesting because some of the content from his receipts was there to show that he wasn't just conning her, that he was trying to make the relationship work. Now, you might argue that his actions didn't follow that thought, that ideology, that he was in it to win it. I'll actually be talking to Reality Steve and maybe some other guests on the 11 a.m. hour. So right after this at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, noon East Coast, I will be discussing a little bit further this wild video that he shared. I've said this all along. After Jen has shared her side, I have said almost like judicially as a judge here, not that anyone cares about my opinion, but as my opinion, I can't offer an opinion on what went down just hearing her side. A lot of people have said, we don't need to hear his side. I think that's reckless too. I think he's entitled to share his side. Whenever anyone says, oh, but my truth is this, I always roll my eyes, but there is something to that. He will have to go on with his life. And if he feels as though the characterization of their breakup was mischaracterized, was not what went down, he's entitled to share that. You don't have to watch. You don't have to watch this. I don't have to make this. But, we're an opinion channel and we share all that. So anyhow, he posted an apology, then deleted it. My guess is he's a little spooked about possibly dealing with legal issues, although I don't think he did anything illegal. As far as I know, sharing text messages, it's like a one-party system. Although it is complicated, it could be different state by state. When it comes to phone calls, certain states you need consent from both sides to share a phone call because that's considered privilege. Some states you don't. In California, you need both people to agree that we're going to air this phone call. If you drive over to Nevada, you don't need that. So every state's different. With text messages, it's not considered revenge P. I'm not going to say the word here, but it's not considered that when it's text messages. Now, if he was to share her images, unbecoming this and that would absolutely be crossing the line. I do believe he did cross the line with regards to what he shared. And I really think he missed an opportunity to prosecute his point. And it's like, it takes a lot, right? Like if I were in his position, which I'm not, I'm a happily married man, I would want to stretch my thoughts out for like an hour long, really share what she said. I always blame, podcasts like Vile Files because they'll always like contextualize and conflate what people say. It's like, share the source material. If I were him, I would share everything she said publicly, which might take a while. Clip it. She said this. He was pulling away after Hawaii. And then I would share text messages that go, no, I was trying to see her. I was just balancing my job and whatever else was going on. That's what I would do. I'm not saying he did or didn't do that, but if your mission is to share your truth, you would want to do that in the most communicative way possible. And the way to do that is to simply show exactly what you said versus her. And it seems as though, and I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't have the technical wherewithal to do that, but you don't really get a second chance at these things. And for that reason, I do think he blew it, but I don't blame anybody for wanting them to get their truth out there. I just think it fell flat because it wasn't prosecuted perfectly, and it also included damning things that made him look bad. So you understand how that can muddy the waters here when you're trying to prove your point. How odd that, though, this happened on the day of the debate. It was almost like, just like the debate is all about perspective. It's not, you know what I mean? When you talk about the presidential debate, it's like you can be on the right side of a story, you can be lying through your teeth, but what really matters is what the audience thinks of all of it. This audience, for the most part, isn't really standing by him, although some people are saying, hey, he went about it the wrong way. I wasn't prepared to do this, but I'll actually share with you guys just a message that I found that was really interesting. Someone said, I feel conflicted because clearly some of these text messages never should have been leaked. But honestly, he does provide a lot of context that was missing or intentionally obscured previously. And that's kind of the problem when when you're not in a public relationship. You can go through a breakup, then you can go to brunch the next day, and you can twist that story in any direction you want. Everyone's going to love you, bottomless mimosa, fantastic time. When you do that publicly, you have to be impeccable with your word. I don't think Jen was the problem here. I think audiences took what she said and lit it on fire and doused gasoline all over it. And so because of, she's allowed to share her truth, right? But because everyone was so hated towards him, he's like, I got to get these receipts out. And I think when you do that in a rushed way, it can be dangerous, as much heat as there might have been if he took, and you couldn't pay me $1 million to want to do this for him. But if it were me, I would redact everything that's not important. I would show timestamps. I would show what he's saying to her. I would, but when he did initially share a receipt last week, I think he deleted it, but we played that video. People were like, oh, you're sharing out of context things. Share the whole thing. Then he does share the whole thing. And it's like, okay, you got burned. He did, that is, because you can't do that. There's somewhere in between, and it's a delicate place. If he wants to say, she fired our therapist without me knowing, I think that's fair to talk about. That's fair to talk about. But the lovey-dovey stuff, that's where it gets personal. So you really have to be, have a sharp sword and be very particular with what you share and don't share here. That didn't happen. And for that reason, I blurred out the text messages. And on today's episode with Reality Steve coming out next, we're going to go live. You can share your thoughts. Be respectful, be kind. We're trying our best to navigate this. It's a dodgy area, but all of the receipts and everything have already been shared. I think it's important. I think there is a way to thread the needle here and discuss this. So articles are picking it up. People Magazine says, The Bachelorette's Devin addresses Jenn Tran's split, says, no matter how hard I was trying, it wasn't good enough. Those sympathetic with Devin, who have read the receipts, say, well, it looks like this guy was running his own business, caring for his dog, trying to do all these things, and it just wasn't enough for her. That might be true, but it also might be true that the commitment level he gave her on the show was one she wanted him to live up to, but that was unfathomable going back to daily life. Also, he's watching her fall in love with other men. There's always those complications. That's why so many of these relationships don't even make it out of the sort of honeymoon period. We'll go through this, their summarization of it, which has to be tough because, like I said, you think he's threading a needle. Those of us commenting on it are threading a needle. We're trying to protect Jen, but also share a truth, which is clearly there was more to the story. I'm not here to say I told you so to anybody. All I wanted all along was to wait to hear what he had to say. And that truth of his is that he wasn't able to live up to what she needed. And maybe, on that end of things, it feels very Tino, Rachel Recchia in the sense that Rachel had to deal with a lot of the hate from the internet, a lot of the overanalyzing, and it was a lot for her. Jen, same way. They both talked about this. What does this say about the audience, really? When the leads, the people that are being championed, are the ones that are having a really hard time. And then what does that say about the contestant? At least the lead is out there making $150,000. They get to go on Dancing with the Stars, do all these press tours. The contestant gets nothing out of it. They just get time off of work. And if he's a business owner, he's not even getting, paid. I don't know if he's getting paid vacation or maybe he's on payroll for himself. Who knows? But the point is you're left with a short end of the stick here. So it was interesting to hear him talk about the fact that like, no one cares about my emotions. I'm going through it too. You think you're hated. He was probably more hated than she was throughout the season, and for sure now. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see, we talk about grace all the time. We talk about compassion. It's very hard to have for people that if you're not in their shoes. I've never been in his shoes. I don't know how I would handle it. But I do think if he was allowed another go around and I was in an elevator, I'd say, hey man, while I have you for 10 seconds, take your time with your response. Be irrefutable and don't share anything that's not very specifically proving your point, because anything that is said can and will be used against you by the audience. So just be careful there. That's what I would say. Here's what so I've got his full video. And again, I've blurred out some of the parts. I didn't blur out the fact that he calls her Coco Chanel. That was her name or whatever, but I blurred out all of the text messages. You can still hear him talk about it. And I'll share that with you. But again, as far as I know, this is still on his Instagram and people can go check it out. It already has, let's see how many views. I'm guessing it's like 500,000, right? Let's go to his Instagram right here. We'll get to his apology in a second. His Instagram reel here has nearly 1 million views, and I'm sure it's going to keep on going up. For different reasons, it's very much the same sort of plea from, very different, but like a Rachel Kirkconnell when they felt like everyone hated them and their backs were against the wall. Will Devin have the resurgence that Rachel Kirkconnell had? Well, he didn't use this chance as good as she did. She nailed her initial thoughts, after her scandal. Devin did not do that. Here's what he had to say in his apology that was since deleted. I deeply am so sorry for showing sensitive information from the bottom of my heart. That was not my intention. My only intention is to show the relationship from my perspective. I gained nothing from that text conversation being shown. I promise you that was a mistake. I tried to censor out all personal, sensitive information. I honestly missed this one and effed up. I know there's no words that can make this better, but I can ensure that there was no intent to show that text. I hope you can please find it in your hearts to forgive me. Now, again, the people that'll say, Devin, delete your post, don't talk, go away. Easy for somebody else to say. I know when people were trashing me online, making these, assumptions that were so wrong to what was the truth. And by the way, I've got years of evidence. I've got years of, who I am worn on my sleeve on my content. So when people would make things up about me, I'd just go, I want to refute this right now. At some point, and I'm not there, but at some point, if you're somebody like a celebrity, you probably, it's like you just give up on all the rumors and things that can be shared about you. When it comes to Devin, it's not that rumors are being shared about him. It's that whatever story Jen told, there were gaps that needed to be filled in, and audiences can decide to fill those gaps in fairly, or they could decide with the bias of what they know. And they decided, for the most part, to see everything through her lens. And now Devin's providing his lens, which at the very least is different than the story she was telling. We'll have more on this coming up next with Reality Steve. And look, this is what our channel does. We go in and pick it apart, and I can be objective as hell. He did not accomplish what he set out to do here. But he definitely added more context to what went down. It was the closest thing to a nuclear bomb, nuclear bomb, leave the comments, Dave, you don't know, that you could throw, which is really, and what you learn is that rather than protect the relationship that already failed, he decided to protect himself. And just like Sam's family decided to, defend him, you can't be surprised that when you're put into a corner, that's what you're going to do. So for those that say, oh, he should delete it or this or that, maybe he could delete it and reshare. It won't have as much of an effect here. But if I were him, I would take out everything she said that you disagree with and respond to it. It might be super boring. It might be 3 hours long, but maybe it'll be cathartic for those that actually want to hear what the general full scope is. The show fails in the sense that they go, well, we gave him his chance. Yeah, in front of a hostile audience with a 3-minute countdown before the commercial break. Sure you did. The show fails in that department. You probably won't get Jen and Devin in the same room. Although if you did and let them talk it out, it would probably be good for them and good for the audience to get the full story. I'll be back with more content at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. We're going live, baby. We'll see you then.